Rather than love, than money, than fame, give me truth. DBS is the largest bank in Southeast Asia by assets and among the largest banks in Asia. Assets totaling over 739 billion as of December 31st, 2023. 5 months ago on DBS's YouTube channel, they released a case study involving Ripple, and they were talking about its integration into their product DBS Rapid. There's very little information about DBS Rapid in the Ripple integration. However, when you search DBS for pilot programs that they're working with other banks such as JP Morgan or SBI, you'll find a treasure trove of information, particularly with Project Guardian. Now, it's very difficult for me to draw a linear timeline of events. However, I plan on posting multiple videos about the research that I've uncovered, and a lot of these projects are utilizing coins that are available to everybody today.
For us to kind of play with it. I do think it's not just up to the central banks. It is a regulatory ecosystem in the first place. If you think about regulators, and that's true in every market. If we continue as a collective community to go after use cases that matter and have massive impact, globally, regionally, whatever the case is from here. I think to me, that's kind of the true north for what we're trying to do.
A while back, Brooks Entwistle was at a panel discussion with DBS, MasterCard, and other participants, and MasterCard actually dropped a hint that MasterCard was partnered with Ripple as well as DBS.
Chinese client who is in the social media business likens, the old world, the old analog world where we have countries and taxes, geography, bounded by geographic distances. We had that in the analog world. In the virtual world, the countries are the OSs, the operating systems, and big tech has countries. And our data, our digital footprint are the taxes that we pay. And then in Web 3.0, if DeFi works, then it's a brave new world of complete decentralization of everything. And what does that mean for us? What does that mean for our business, for our portfolios? And what does that mean for social norms and social values? You see that happening in China today, right? And I'm actually optimistic that if we do decentralize transactions, values, store of values, etc., that society will do the right thing. And with smart contracts, we can input and program and make money or transfers or KYCs programmable, instant, immutable, and therefore enabling a whole new way of transacting, investing, banking, and living. So with that, I want to end by hoping that you will give DBS a chance to be your DeFi bank of choice.
Think about how radical this is. This is a DBS banker talking at a DBS conference about DeFi shaking up the banking industry and completely transforming the business model to where there is no business model of banks anymore. That's why she's saying a DeFi bank. Now, it's funny that she mentions China and decentralization, because you could argue that that is the dystopian vision of crypto. And she's almost gleeful in describing this quote, brave new world.
In some of the crypto exchanges whereby when a transaction happens, settlement happens on the back of USDC or TC. And I think that is something that in the world that we're operating in, that all of us are familiar with, we are catching up with what that world has become. And we feel that the path that we're on with this infrastructure will immediately get us into that space and even more. So that is something that I just want to use as a basis for you to understand, and also as a basis for you to imagine on the use cases that you can create on the back of this. And so finally, we believe that with this capability, the way you reimagine payments through blockchain, where we're able to use proof of value, proof of obligation, and proof of transaction, and identity, we would be able to now change the whole payment landscape into a 24/7, into one where payment happens because it is based on your terms, and at the same time, you know that when settlement happens, it is final.
So a few things. He first mentions a crypto digital asset exchange, which DBS opened up, and they were actually partnered with Medico that later Ripple took over. XRP is listed in the digital asset exchange he's talking about. The slide that he's showing is of a project called Partier. Now, a lot of people in the XRP community are thinking that Partier is using some form of RippleNet or the XRP ledger. This is false. Partier is a permission version of Ethereum. It's Quorum, and it's very similar to R3. If you look at their website, they echo a lot of things that Ripple has said in the past, but I've dug into the patents, and it's all using Ethereum Quorum. In this article, a JP Morgan executive that's working on Project Onyx that was later rebranded talked about Partier. Now, Partier was being tested by JP Morgan's digital asset venture as well as DBS, and it looks like in this interview, they talked about Partier being the monetary authority of Singapore could carry out a similar function via backing Partier, for example, or a private fintech such as Ripple could advance its own models. And it talks about we're not trying to create walled gardens, Malaya said. The lack of interoperability means lack of adoption. Reachability is important, and that can only work if there's interoperability. And this entire article talks about the ERC20 standard and different standards and kind of bringing the different blockchains together through interoperability.
As I think about the stuff that we want to share with you today, and hopefully you'll find it useful, I reflected and linked it back to the use cases that might be relevant to you. So we announced recently that together with JP Morgan and Temasek, we have launched the Partior exchange. It's called Partior, but it really is a blockchain-enabled real-time cross-currency platform, settlements platform. And we're hoping with Partior that we will create a star alliance of sorts, a star alliance of banks, who will then have 24/7 real-time settlement across borders, swift, quick, cheap, efficient. I talked about what we did for trade, and it really was a game changer for us for trade. This is real physical trade.
In 2021, DBS, JP Morgan, Temasek launched Partier. Partier was a platform that is for foreign exchange, and it's specifically permissioned Ethereum Quorum blockchain. So it's a private version of Ethereum that's controlled by a select few validators that most likely will be banks. And this project later evolved with Project Guardian, where they tested it out. JP Morgan created a product called Crescendo, and I will go into depth on these topics at a later date. There's just far too much information packed into these projects for me to go into one by one. But anyway, Partier is was created with MasterCard as well as Mojo Loop. So there's an initiative called the Shareable Liberty Consortia that includes Standard Chartered Bank, Shareable Asset, and this is a multi-layered ecosystem. Now you can see that Stellar is also involved with the Shareable Liberty Project. This diagram is highlighting Partier's MasterCard's role within the Shareable Liberty Consortia. And it's notable that later on the Hong Kong Monetary Authority started to use this project as one of their testing proof of concepts. Now, I highlighted Mojo Loop as well as Xtopay, and it looks like Xtopay is taking a modified version of the XRP ledger for their biometric solution that's for retail oriented use cases. Here you can see XODLT is a modified version of the XRP ledger. They're working with a proof of concept in collaboration with Alluvial, and they have integrations with R3 Corda as a tier 1 CBDC system. I will add all of these links in the description below. Now, it's important to note that right now, the regulatory climate is sort of favorable towards crypto assets, but no laws have actually been placed. There's a lot of hype and anticipation that these laws will be placed. And once that happens, we can see banks dive into layer ones. We could see them use different open protocols that have coins, the coins that we're invested in. As of right now, the reason why these are all designed as private and permissioned is because by law they have to be.
Trump has said that he wants to be the crypto president. And I know that Goldman Sachs has digital asset business. Talk to me about how likely it is and when you will have spot Bitcoin trading at Goldman Sachs.
Well, that's a question you have to ask to regulators, because at the moment, as a regulated banking institution, and I think you know this, we're not allowed to own a cryptocurrency like Bitcoin as a principle. You know, I do think that these technologies are addressing, and they're getting a lot of attention at the moment, because there's a view that the regulatory framework is going to evolve as we go forward differently than it seemed like it was evolving under the last administration. You know, I would just say that the regulatory framework has to evolve, okay? And everyone's speculating as to how that regulatory framework will evolve, but it's still unclear how the regulatory framework is going to evolve. And so, you know, we help serve our clients, and we give our clients advice around a variety of these technologies and these issues. We'll continue to do that. But for the moment, you know, our ability to act in these markets is extremely limited from a regulatory perspective.
But are you able to build something in advance of a regulatory shift?
I don't, you know, to build by building, I'm not sure that I know, you know, what you mean. We have deep expertise around these issues. We advise clients. We have people that help clients think about all these issues. But, you know, if from a regulatory perspective, we were allowed to interact in these assets, we have a pretty big infrastructure to interact in assets.
Sure.
We don't have to, you know, we don't have to, if the regulatory structure was different, you know, Goldman Sachs could choose to participate in markets differently than we can now.
This is a fairly recent interview that was taking place by Reuters, and David Solomon from Goldman Sachs is telling you exactly what the regulatory environment is. And the fact that they can't touch these layer ones, they can't get involved with coins that are open and trading, just tells you exactly how badly they want to. In the next video, I'm going to discuss Project Guardian, and there is layers upon layers upon layers of different coins associated with these projects. Now, a lot of times these projects are simply just that. It's an experiment for them to figure out which different products will come from this experiment. The regulators watch them and figure out the laws and how to adjust the laws for it to all make sense. Now, I often see, in the case of JP Morgan, is that there was an evolution coming from this project into an actual product that they launched. So It's not so much that these projects are written in stone, it's that later you see an evolution and it becomes finely tuned as it rolls out. I'm very excited to see how this all plays out. There's so much information, it's difficult to even concentrate. And I believe that this speculative nature that we're seeing as Bitcoin's almost above 100K is just the tip of the iceberg. When all assets start becoming tokenized and placed on chain, I think we're going to have a very different environment in the crypto world. And all truths are easy to understand once they are discovered. The point is to discover them. Thanks everyone, I hope you enjoyed the show. Please take a moment to like and subscribe. If you enjoy content like this, please consider joining my Patreon or my ghost site, dmjr.ghost.ao. Thanks everyone.